UNICEF is the world's leading children's organization. So founded in the aftermath of World War II to help deal with the refugee crisis of children that had been displaced in countries across Europe. Much of that work and expertise that's been developed over that past 75 years has been called upon in the most recently with the experience, the aftermath of the Russian invasion and the horrific war within Ukraine, but also in countries across the developing world. So UNICEF, as I said, as the world's largest children's organization, has a presence in 126 country offices, so working there on programs from everything from education to water, hygiene and sanitation, nutrition, as well as immunization, AIDS prevention, and other health-related programs. So we also have 36 national committees, so like the office that I work in myself and my colleagues. But UNICEF as a global organization has a number of HQs, the one main one being in New York, which is located with the United Nations, because UNICEF is a UN agency, the UN Agencies for Children. And then other headquarters for UNICEF include Supply Division, which is a emergency response headquarters, so much of the response that was brought into Ukraine, so the emergency medical supplies would have been pre-positioned within Copenhagen and then put on trucks and driven into Ukraine. So it's 10,000 staff across the world, many of those working programmatically, and also in advocacy for children, and as I said, 88% of those staff are in the field. So how does UNICEF work? So UNICEF has 5 goals or overarching goals, so working on behalf of children, that every child has the right to survive and thrive, that every child learns, that every child is protected from violence and exploitation, that every child has an equitable chance of life, and that every child lives in a safe and clean environment. And so UNICEF as a UN agency is also responsible for a number of the sustainable development goals. So we know that we see chambers of commerce and the government increasingly talking about the importance of the sustainable development goals for businesses. And so UNICEF, when it works with partners, is able to help, or businesses specifically, able to help them work to achieve some of their aims within the sustainable development goals, whether they be to ensure equal opportunity to education, or to reduce poverty, or also to increase access to nutrition. But we wanted to focus today specifically a bit on UNICEF's work in emergencies and talk about what UNICEF has been doing not only this year but last year. So as the world's largest organization working for children, UNICEF in 2021 provided humanitarian aid for children in 153 countries, and that humanitarian aid takes place across a wide spectrum of humanitarian crises. So it could be sudden onset natural disasters, such as typhoons or hurricanes. It also is for those ones that might be something that could be seen on the horizon, whether it be famine caused by drought, as we're seeing in the Horn of Africa at the moment, which is being currently exacerbated by the spike in commodities and food prices. But UNICEF continues to be the first response for children in emergencies. So UNICEF is there for children in emergencies before the emergency hits, throughout the emergency, and long after the cameras have left. So with that presence across 126 countries, UNICEF continues to be there for children both before and after emergencies. So we know that it's been an incredibly difficult year and that we've seen a lot of the global challenges, but again, UNICEF continues to be there for children throughout these crises. And so just to put a spotlight on 5 of them where UNICEF has a response at the moment. So UNICEF has been in Afghanistan for over 30 years. And so the insecurity that was caused last year, UNICEF is there to support many of the partners that were on the ground and continue to be there even after the withdrawal from the country. So also within Africa and across the African continent, so within the Central African Republic, it's one of the toughest places in the world to be a child. And there are urgent needs for children and families, and the international response has not been quite there to meet the need, but UNICEF continues to work there on behalf of children. I think what likely is top of mind for people at the moment is the Horn of Africa crisis. So we know that there's a drought across the Horn of Africa, so it's coming into the 5th season where there will be a where the rains won't meet the needs for the farmers. And so there's an additional pressure that is put on those farmers, on those communities. And that is, of course, exacerbated by the fact that the grain supplies that were to come from Ukraine and Russia were held up by the horrific war that began on February 24th. So UNICEF, as well, as I said, continues to be in countries long after the cameras have left. So UNICEF was in Syria prior to the onset of that war. It has been there over the decades plus time that war has continued to happen, and continues to have a presence there today, not only within the country, but also in those countries surrounding Syria, where displaced people have gone through and left and are currently in refugee camps, such as within Jordan. And then also as well, UNICEF has had a decades-long presence within Pakistan. So UNICEF has worked with the government of Pakistan across a wide range of programs, including education, nutrition, water hygiene, and sanitation. So UNICEF is currently working with the government to help with their response to the torrential monsoon rains that triggered the most recent flooding. So UNICEF would do a number of different, help the government with a number of different services. So not only in terms of providing basic water and nutrition, but UNICEF also has the capacity to help track children that have been separated from their families and to reconnect them. So while we were pleased to have the opportunity to speak at the business expos, because there are a number of ways that UNICEF works with businesses. So we do, of course, work with businesses that provide financial support for UNICEF's humanitarian appeals, 5 of which I just shared, as well as we've seen overwhelming support for the work of UNICEF and partners in Ukraine over these past 7 months. UNICEF has a number of, our office, UNICEF Ireland, myself, my colleague Anya, are happy to work with businesses to develop employee engagement and customer engagement propositions. So for employee engagement, we saw a lot of different companies that did different types of fundraising, whether they be in-store cycleathons or walkathons in support of families that have been displaced within Ukraine. We've also done in-store activations with businesses, speaking directly to their customers and encouraging their customers to donate. We do also work with core businesses around their activities and assets. So, throughout the response to Ukraine, that might have been working with large beverage companies that would have supplied water and trucked it and helped UNICEF truck it into the country. And then also as well, we're going back to what I touched on before around the Sustainable Development Goals. We are able to work with businesses and talk about how their practices affect children. So I had prepared a video, but I think what we'll do is we'll just move past the video. And I would just encourage anyone that's here today to connect with us. So you can reach out to me or my colleagues. So I've provided Anya's email. You can also scan the QR code to get in touch with us to learn more about how your business can either work with UNICEF to encourage employee engagement, to connect more with customers, to talk about your business practices and child-friendly policies, not only within your core business itself, but also across your supply chain. And then as well, we're happy to work with you, whether it be across communications or marketing or other functions where you're looking to communicate the impact that your business has for children. So again, I encourage you to scan the QR code. And I'd, with that, also like to thank you for the opportunity. And again, thank you to Cormac and Arlene for having myself and UNICEF Ireland here today.